Hey, what is going on, guys? Max Settings here, and welcome back to another review. So in today's review, we are going to be taking a look at the famed Hifiman HE-6. This headphone has quite the reputation, particularly for being the hardest headphone to drive. And these headphones are quite interesting, and they definitely are pretty much the hardest headphones out there to drive. However, they are absolutely exceptional, as you'll see when we get into the sound segment of this video. And I wanted to give a big shout out to Flux on Discord. He is known for sending out headphones to reviewers, and he did send these out for review along with the Stax L700. However, this pair of HE-6 is no longer Flux's because I have purchased this pair from him. And that should be a little bit of a spoiler for things to come. So let's get things started here with some basic specs as always. So these headphones are planar magnetic. The original MSRP I believe was $1,200. They have an impedance of 50 ohms. The quoted sensitivity is 83.5 dB per milliwatt. However, when Tile measured these, he got a sensitivity of 77 dB per milliwatt, a weight of 502 grams, and a frequency response of 8 to 65,000 hertz. So the HE-6 is notorious for being the hardest headphone to drive because of that insanely low sensitivity. 77 dB per milliwatt according to Tile. So let's talk about this particular pair of HE-6, and I wanted to talk about a few things. So this pair is mostly stock. The only things that have been done to it is stock. There is a quarter piece of foam underneath the pads, which I'm not going to take the pads off, but that has been removed, not by me, by Flux. Some pairs have apparently some like foam, or not foam, like angel's hair kind of stuff or whatever behind the grills. This pair does not have that. And this is a 4-screw HE-6. There's 4 and 6 screw HE-6s, which you can read online about the differences. But before anybody asks, this particular pair is a 4-screw, which is the older HE-6. The newer runs were the 6-screw. So that is just a couple of things to keep in mind about this particular HE-6. Oh, and then one more thing. I only received the velour pads, the stock Hifiman velour pads, not the leather ones. So all sound things with this headphone is going to be with the velour pads. And I'm also going to do an update video to the HE-6 because I'm going to be doing a few modifications to it for comfort with the headband and the pads, as well as we're going to talk about what happens to this headphone when you put it on a proper amp to be able to drive them. But for this review, we're going to be reviewing them in, like I said, this mostly stock form, and this is going to be off of quote-unquote normal headphone amps, because the amps that I've tried this on are not the most normal mainstream amplifiers. So starting things off with the build, the HE-6 is the classic old school original Hifiman build. So the build on these has some weak points for sure. The notorious one was the gimbal here that slides up and down for the adjustment. This plastic piece snaps. That's pretty classic, well-known problem with the original Hifimans. The top headband is leather. I think it's real leather. I guess the yokes and the little slide part of the headband, that is all metal. Like I already mentioned, this plastic bit snaps. Metal grills, which is the same ones that Hifiman used on a lot of headphones. The little plastic rings. And then like this dark bluish purple kind of finish. This pair does have a little chip on this side, like right there. This little chip in the finish. So the finish does chip. It's not the most durable finish. And then these are the velour pads, like I already mentioned. Very dense foam. We'll talk about a little bit more in the comfort. And these are also known to have some driver failures. That's something to keep in mind with the build, that the drivers can fail. And on the bottom, you'll see the SMC connectors, which I'm not a fan of, which we'll talk about when we get into the cables. So that is the build here on the HE-6. So as for comfort, these are probably going to be extremely uncomfortable for most people. I don't know why, but they don't bother me that much. For whatever reason, they hurt my head less than the HD800, which makes no sense because they are very clampy. They clamp a lot. They're very heavy, like over 500 grams. They're very, very heavy headphones. And there's no suspension strap, just very thin foam with a metal piece here in the headband. And yeah, so these are going to be really uncomfortable to most people in their stock form. Although for some reason they didn't bother me, which makes no sense. My head is just weird like that. So you're definitely going to do some modifications to these, which you'll see what I recommend you do in the update video, which should be coming in a week or so. So then as for included accessories, they do come in this box, which you just has a little snap. You open it up like so, and that's where your headphones will go. I believe you'll also get the leather pads, and Flux included a spare set of grills for these, but you will not get those naturally. So this is just kind of the box. Not a pretty nice box with some kind of like pleather material. This pair has been chipped a little bit, but that's the box you'll get with the HE-6. So then as for cables, I did not receive the stock cable with this pair of HE-6. Flux did not give it to me. I believe he actually purchased this pair without the stock cable, which apparently breaks fairly often, I've heard. So what he included with it is the Moon Audio Blue Dragon cable. And I am not a believer in cables changing sound by any means. And yeah, I don't like this cable at all. It's stiff, rubbery, like ugh. And then once it splits, it goes to like this even cheaper feeling, like black rubber, where you can see the wires. And it's almost like it's heat shrinked over the entire part of the wire. And then these long, stiff parts where it's like heat shrinked on there. And then SMC is a connector. I don't like it at all. It's annoying. You have to like push it up in there and it screws in. And like it feels like you're twisting the cable more than it's actually screwing in. So yeah, I don't like SMC at all as a connector. I wish these used something else. I have seen pairs modded to use other connectors, but that's pretty difficult. So you're really gonna have to know what you're doing to mod these to something like 3.5mm or 2.5mm. Okay, so now as for power. So this is usually a short segment in most of my videos. Most of them are just like, yeah, easy to drive, kind of hard to drive. You need this amp, whatever. Okay, so the HE-6 is known as the hardest headphone to drive pretty much ever. A few other ones like the AKG K1000s and some like the MySpheres, the RALs or something are hard to drive, but this is pretty much the classically known hardest headphone to drive. So even though the impedance is pretty low, 50 ohms, that sensitivity just makes them insanely hard to drive. And this is the poster child for when you see newbies that talk about, oh, can this amp drive 250 ohms or 300 ohms or something like that, or they think that high impedance headphones are hard to drive. You give them one of these at 50 ohms, and they're like, oh yeah, easy to drive, 50 ohms. Nope. These things are pretty funny. If you want to get a laugh, try these off a phone. They don't make much noise at all. So these pretty much live up to their hype as being insanely hard to drive. And that makes amp pairings quite interesting. So what is recommended with these is to run them off of a speaker amp. And I recently did get the chance to do that. I purchased a Shit Vidar to power these, as well as some adapter cables, which we will talk about in the update. But this review is going to be based off using them on two amplifiers, the more quote-unquote rational Audio God NFB 1 amp and the IFI ICANN Pro, which is quite a bit more expensive and a little less rational of an amplifier. So we'll talk about those a little bit more when we get into this sound segment of these. But yes, you definitely going to want to use these off a speaker amp. Just a little spoiler alert for the update video, because they are quite hard to drive. Okay, and now for the sound of the HE-6. So going with the frequency response as usual, these headphones have very flat bass all the way down to 20 Hertz, as is come to expect of high-end planar headphones. After that, it remains honestly pretty flat. After around 1.5K, your mid-range recess is maybe 3 or 4 dB or so, from about 1.5K all the way until around 6K, just very, very slightly recessed mid-range. Nothing too bad, pretty typical Hifiman recession that I talk about in my Hifiman reviews. After that, once you pass around 6K, the treble does come up a good bit, honestly. Right around 5 dB or so. From about 8 to 9K, the rest of the treble region elevates 4 or 5 dB over where the mids and the bass were. So these are that very mild V-shaped Hifiman, although these are a little bit brighter than other ones we talked about, like the 560, the Sundara, the Ananda. I almost want to call these almost like J-shaped, like the bass is pretty in line, slight recession in the mids, and pretty bright. The HE-6 with the velour pads is quite bright. In all honesty, even more so than I even think the frequency response kind of shows, because there is that little bit of a treble peak there at around about 9K or so. It peaks up quite a bit. So these things are going to be pushing most people's treble tolerances. If you're treble sensitive, these with the velour pads are just going to kill you. They're bright, and they can come off as a little bit sibilant at times. They're definitely a bright headphone with the velour pads, which we'll talk about other pads in the update video. But as I mentioned, this is only going to be with the velour pads. As for other things, soundstage on these is not too wide, kind of average, maybe slightly above average, but nothing exceptional. Imaging, however, is where these things excel. The HE-6 has a presentation of sound like nothing else I've ever heard in a headphone. These things do imaging in a way that is just different than anything else. Some of you might know who Ishka Bibble is, or also known as Kyle Dionella. He's a reviewer for headphones.com, and this is his all-time favorite headphone. And I really like the way that he described it. He said that the HE-6 has a concert-like presentation, unlike anything else he's heard. And I do agree with that quite a bit. These things position sound in a way that, like you said, is concert-like, where it just, the precision of the side to side and the front to back and the up and the down is just on point. It is so exceptional and just accurate and natural. Like the HD800 here, when I said it was wide and it images very well, it does, but it's in a way that doesn't sound natural, if that makes sense, where you can tell where stuff is, but like in the space, it doesn't sound like you're listening to like the music and you're listening to like, all right, here's these 4 guys all playing instruments, and one's here, one's here, one's here. It sounds like they're kind of far apart almost, and these things are just like, it's hard to describe like how these things image. It's really spectacular and natural sounding, the way that these present sound. I've never heard anything that presents sound this naturally and this on point. And that is honestly pretty much what made me decide to purchase these from Flux. I asked if he was willing to sell them. He said yes. He gave me a price. I said done. And I now own these headphones. And now as for other things, the detail on these is quite good actually. It's not on the level of HD800 or the Stax L700 that we reviewed in the previous 2 reviews. However, it is not bad at all for their price point. So these things used are $800 or $900 or so, maybe $1,000 depending if you get one in really nice shape. So let's say $800 to $1,000. Detail wise, yes, definitely there for $1,000 or even over. Honestly, like I mentioned, the HD800, or I mentioned in other videos that the HD800 is not really fair to compare things to because it's hard to beat that in detail, even at like much more money. So compared to other $1,000-ish headphones, HE-6 holds its own very well. Definitely outresolves LCD2, outresolves Alex, and a few other things like that. It's definitely even up there with HE-1000. It might beat it. Honestly, it's been a little while since I've heard HE-1000. I would love to A/B those two, but I've heard that the Hifiman's founder and CEO, Feng Bian, or Dr. Feng, as people know him as, he said that one of his regrets was he sold the HE-6 too cheap. And I can see why. The technical ability of this headphone is unlike any planar I think I've ever heard. The only thing that reminds me of these is the Abyss headphones. They kind of have a similar level of technical ability from my brief time with them. But compared to other mainstream planar headphones, this presents sound in a way that I've never experienced with anything else. And then the other thing where these shine is dynamics. The macro dynamics of this thing is insane for a planar. These things, when amped properly, just slam, almost like a Fostex Biodyna, like a TH900 or something like that. It's almost on that level of slam. It's not as resolving in the bass as a Biodyna headphone by any means, but it has that level of slam and impact. It just has so dynamic for a planar headphone, and it's just really, really nice. The presentation in this level of dynamics, macro and micro dynamics, are very, very good. Okay, so now let's talk about amp pairings. So as I mentioned, the two amps that we are going to be talking about with these headphones in this video are going to be the AudioGod NFB1 amp and the IFI iCan Pro. And reviews of those will both be coming. We are not going to be talking about the shit Vidar, because that is going to be for the update video. So let's start things off with the NFB1. That is what we're going to be calling the quote-unquote rational headphone amp. Now, that is not the most rational headphone amp by any means. It is a massive amp that can push out like 8 watts a channel at 45 ohms, if I remember correctly. So it is a powerful, powerful headphone amp. So the first thing is, if you're going to run these on a headphone amp balanced, you're just going to have to, for the extra power that pretty much almost all amplifiers that use balance put out through their XLR. So running an HE-6 single-ended is pretty much never going to happen. So on the NFB1, I don't like these headphones at all. Even though they get loud enough, something about it just ruins the dynamics. They just don't have that slam and that level of presentation. They just get kind of soft and kind of limp sounding. And I'll tell you why that is. So the HE-6 needs a lot of gain to sound correct. Supposedly it's somewhere around 30 dB or so of gain in order to have the proper level of dynamics. And you also need a lot of power behind it. Or even though it'll get loud enough, it just doesn't sound correct. It doesn't have enough gain. It doesn't have enough overhead power to work with. So the NFB1, I think, has 12 dB of gain on, well, I guess the highest gain is the same as the lowest gain technically on that amplifier. But on the NFB1, I don't like these at all. It just doesn't sound right. I did not try them on the THX 789. I do have one now, but I'm not opening it for reasons. But not tried on the 789, but that's even less powerful than the 1 amp. So yeah, so you're not going to be running these off of a Magni or an Atom or an EL amp, or NFB1 doesn't sound right, where it'll get loud enough, but like I said, the dynamics is just not there, and it just makes them sound weird and kind of, I almost want to say woolly or fuzzy, that just no. And then as for the IFI, so the IFI on its highest gain setting is 18 dB of gain, which is a lot better than 12. On that amp, these things are acceptable. Most of my time with these has been on the iCan Pro, and listening on that amp is what made me decide to buy them. That was enough to get me to want to buy them. And that amp can push 14 watts a channel through its XLR at 16 ohm. At 50 it's less, but it has a lot of gain, it has a lot of power, and it's very hot amplifier. That thing, I think, is the level of headphone amp that you need to get these to any acceptable kind of listening, not volume, because other amps get to that kind of volume, but kind of range, a listening range, whatever, where you have enough gain and stuff where the impact is definitely there and the dynamics are still good, because otherwise it just sounds wrong. It's just a weird headphone. So like I mentioned, off of most headphone amps, most people are not going to like these. You just don't have the kind of power to get these things up and running to their full potential. iCan Pro does a decent job. That's the only headphone amp I've tried these on that works. I tried these on Valhalla too. That was laughable. That was pretty funny. It just distorts that thing like crazy. So stay tuned for the update. We'll talk about what happens when you run these on a speaker amp. But as for headphone amps, just not recommended unless you have an iCan Pro or something else that I can't think of that just has stupid power and gain through its output. So as for comparisons, let's talk about HD800. This is wider. It has better detail. Dynamics doesn't have the kind of impact that these do. These have more slam than the HD800, even though these have very good dynamic range. These, like I said, are very unforgiving, and I think some people are going to like the HE-6 more. Some people say the HD800 is sibilant. These are more sibilant than the HD800 for sure, at least with the velour pads. We'll talk about other pads in the update video, as already mentioned. So as I mentioned in the LCD2 review, if you're buying a new LCD2 and you can get a pair of these used instead, I personally would. I think these are better detailed, more dynamic sounding, with a better presentation, and I don't like the Odyssey sound signature. But if you can power these properly, these things are just exceptional. I bought them, and that's how much I like these headphones. And as I already mentioned, HE-1000 I think would be a fun comparison to these. Those also used or around what this costs, slightly more, like maybe like 1.1K. So if I get a pair of those in, I'll definitely compare to the HE-6 because this is mine, so it'll be here for pretty much forever now. I don't think I'll be selling these anytime soon. But yeah, so I think those are going to be probably its closest competitors. Would take over Alex, would take over LCD2 for sure. HD800 is different. I like this for different reasons. These two are both very good, and I think they both deserve a space in your collection. But a lot of people ask me, what is my daily driver? And I honestly say I don't have a daily driver. I swap through headphones a lot, but I think that's going to change. HE-6 is now going to be my daily driver headphone, especially after the mods that are coming to it. It is going to be even better. So, like, yeah, I seriously put my money where my mouth is this time. I purchased this headphone, got it in for review, liked it so much that I had to own it. And it's not the cheapest thing in the world to own, especially with all the stuff I added onto it, with amps and cables and other mods that you'll see in the update video. So HE-6, exceptional headphone. One of my favorite headphones of all time, certainly top 3 for now. Just incredible presentation of sound, so natural, great dynamics, really good detail. Could be a little bright with these pads, a little sibilant, but it's just some of the best technical ability of any planar I've ever heard. And for the experienced of you out there, I think you will like this headphone a lot. You really have to understand what it does well. It's going to take some experience for you to be able to pick up on that for sure. So I definitely recommend you pick one of these up, but you'll see the mods that I recommend doing to it because the build on them can be a little bit sketchy. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of the HE-6. Just like I mentioned a bunch of times, exceptional headphone, highest recommendation, and you should pick one up if you can power it and you are committed to wanting to power this headphone correctly. But I hope you enjoyed my review of the HE-6. Look forward to the update video coming in a week or so, and links to, well, where to buy these used, eBay, HeadFi, AV Exchange, stuff like that, as well as MiniDSP EARS graph, my Twitter, my contact email, and all other relevant information in the description below. And I will link some cable makers that are not Moon Audio and not Pairings if you want to get a cable for these down there in the description. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.